I never thought I'd be one of those guys, the ones who find themselves in some messed up situation, posting on Reddit for advice. But here I am, completely lost and not sure what to do next. My wife, Emily, and I have been together for almost 8 years, married for 5. We met in college. Typical story, she was smart, funny, beautiful, and I fell hard. We had the kind of relationship people envied, or at least that's what I thought. Things were good for a long time. We had our ups and downs like anyone, but we always got through them. Then, over the last few months, something shifted. Emily became distant, almost like she was annoyed by my presence. She'd make up excuses for why she didn't want to hang out. Too tired, too busy, whatever. She started going out a lot more. With friends, coming home later than usual, and brushing off my questions with that "Why are you always so paranoid?" attitude. I'll admit, part of me knew something was off, but I tried to ignore it. I chalked it up to stress at work, or maybe just a phase in our marriage. But the little things started piling up. She'd get texts late at night and immediately hide her phone, always with some excuse about how it was just her friend Melissa or someone from work. She'd dress up way more than usual for her supposed girls' nights out. I started feeling like a stranger in my own home, but I didn't want to be that husband, the suspicious, controlling type. Now I wish I had trusted my gut sooner. It all came crashing down last week. I was working from home when Emily left her phone on the kitchen counter. She'd gone to the gym, or so she said. Normally, she's glued to her phone, so seeing it just sitting there was weird. I don't want to sound like a paranoid freak, but my instincts were screaming at me to look. I know, it's an invasion of privacy, but I couldn't help it. The curiosity, the gnawing doubt, all of it was too much. So, I picked up her phone and opened it. She'd forgotten to lock it, and the first thing I saw was a message from a guy named Ryan. My heart dropped. The conversation was flirty, no, scratch that, explicit. They weren't talking about work or some innocent coffee catch-up. They were talking about meeting up, about the things they were planning to do when they saw each other next. He called her babe, and she responded with a bunch of hearts. I felt like someone had kicked me in the gut. I kept scrolling, hoping, praying. It wasn't what it looked like, but it got worse. They'd been talking for months. There were photos, too, nothing I ever thought I'd see my wife send to someone else. I saw messages about how much she missed him, and how she couldn't wait to sneak out again. And here I was, thinking she was hanging out with her friends. It was undeniable at this point. My wife was cheating on me. I wasn't thinking straight. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding, and my mind was racing a mile a minute. I didn't even know what I was going to say, but I knew I had to confront her the moment she walked through the door. Emily came home, all smiles, like nothing had happened. She had that gym bag slung over her shoulder, the one I now couldn't help but wonder if it had been with her when she met Ryan. I didn't waste any time. I stood in the kitchen, holding her phone out like a piece of evidence at a crime scene. "What the hell is this, Emily?" I asked, my voice way calmer than I felt. She froze, her smile dropping in an instant. "What are you talking about?" "This," I said, unlocking the phone and pulling up her messages with Ryan. I practically shoved the screen in her face. Her eyes widened, and for a split second, I saw panic. But then, she did something that I still can't believe. She rolled her eyes. "You're seriously going through my phone now? That's what we're doing?" My jaw nearly hit the floor. That was her reaction. No apology, no guilt, just flipping it on me like I was the bad guy for finding out. "You're seriously going to make this about me checking your phone?" I yelled, feeling the heat rise to my face. "You've been lying to me, sneaking around with some guy named Ryan, and now I'm the problem?" Emily crossed her arms, her face hardening. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice sharp. "Ryan's just a friend. I don't know what kind of conclusion you're jumping to, but we're just talking. I can have friends, you know." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Friends? You don't send pictures like that to friends, Emily. You don't meet up with friends behind your husband's back and talk about sneaking around. She huffed and turned away, muttering something under her breath that I couldn't make out. But I caught her next line clear as day. You're being so dramatic right now. That hit me like a slap to the face. I was dramatic? Me? After everything I'd just seen? Just admit it, I said, my voice cracking. You've been cheating on me. She didn't deny it. Instead, she shrugged and said, well, maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have to. Her words hit me like a freight train. Maybe if you paid more attention to me. The room seemed to spin, and I felt this tightness in my chest like I couldn't breathe. The worst part? She didn't even seem sorry. There was no regret in her eyes, no hint of remorse. Just cold indifference. I stood there, stunned, replaying her words in my head. How could she say something like that? How could she make me out to be the one who was at fault? I've been working my ass off to provide for us, thinking I was doing the right thing, and here she was, acting like I was some neglectful husband. As if I hadn't sacrificed anything for this marriage. I wanted to scream, to punch a wall, to do something, anything, to release the anger that was bubbling up inside me. But instead I just stood there, frozen, trying to wrap my head around it all. Is that really how you see it? I asked quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. She glanced at me and shrugged, like we were talking about something as trivial as what to have for dinner. I mean, yeah. You've been distant, always busy with work, never paying attention to me. What did you expect? My hands balled into fists. What did I expect? I expected you to be faithful, Emily. I expected us to work through things like adults, not for you to go running into someone else's arms the moment things got tough. The anger was building again, but this time it was mixed with something else, this deep, gnawing sadness. The kind that sits in your gut and doesn't let go. I felt like my heart was being ripped out of my chest. I'd given so much to this marriage, and in a matter of minutes, everything I thought I knew about my wife, about our life together, had crumbled to pieces. She just stood there, arms crossed, completely unfazed by the destruction she'd caused. Look, it's not like we even slept together or anything. It was just talking. Maybe some flirting, sure, but it didn't mean anything. That was it. That was her excuse. Flirting, talking, none of it meant anything to her, but it meant everything to me. It felt like the life I'd built with her was a lie, and the woman I thought I knew was just a stranger standing in front of me. I couldn't help but ask, "Why, Emily? Why did you do this?" She sighed, like this whole conversation was exhausting her. I don't know, okay? It just happened. I guess I just felt like you weren't there for me anymore. Ryan, he was there. He listened. He made me feel good about myself again. There it was. The truth, finally. It wasn't about me being distant or too busy. It was about her. She wanted the attention, the validation, and when I couldn't give her enough of it, she went looking elsewhere. The reality of it all began to sink in. My marriage, my life. It wasn't what I thought it was. I spent the next few days in a fog. My mind kept going over every detail, every conversation, every moment where I missed the signs. I kept trying to understand, was I really that blind? Could I have prevented this somehow? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't about me failing as a husband. It was about her choice. Emily continued living in the house, acting like nothing had changed. She'd still make coffee in the morning, go about her day, and throw casual comments like, "I told you, it didn't mean anything." The nonchalance was unbearable. It wasn't just the cheating anymore. It was the fact that she didn't even seem to care about what she had done, about the pain she was causing. I couldn't live like that. A week after the confrontation, I sat her down. "I can't do this anymore, Emily." She looked up from her phone, barely giving me her full attention. "Do what?" "This marriage." My voice broke, and I hated how weak it sounded, but I had to get the words out. "I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me. I can't stay in a relationship where I'm constantly questioning if you're telling the truth or lying to my face." For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then she rolled her eyes. Oh my God, you're seriously still upset about this? I already told you, it didn't mean anything. You're overreacting. That was it. That was the moment I knew there was no saving us. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even pretending to be. I'd been carrying the weight of this betrayal, and she was acting like it was an inconvenience, like I was being unreasonable for having feelings about it. I stood up. I'm done, Emily. We're done. She finally put her phone down, staring at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Wait, you're leaving me? Over this? I nodded. Yeah. I deserve better than this. You don't want to work on this marriage. You just want me to shut up and move on, but I can't. I don't trust you anymore. She tried to argue, to throw out more half-hearted excuses, but I wasn't listening. I'd made up my mind. I packed a bag and left that night, staying at a friend's place while I figured out my next steps. It wasn't easy. In fact, it felt like I was tearing my heart out, but I knew staying would be worse. The constant doubt, the lack of trust, it would destroy me from the inside. As the days passed, I realized how much I had been holding on to the idea of what our marriage was supposed to be, rather than seeing it for what it actually was. I had been trying so hard to make something work that was already broken. And in the end, Emily didn't care enough to fix it. So, I made the choice to care about myself instead. In the weeks that followed, I went through a whirlwind of emotions. I vacillated between anger and sadness, disbelief and relief. Each day felt like a new battle as I tried to reclaim my sense of self. I immersed myself in work and leaned on friends for support. Surprisingly, I found strength in their kindness and understanding, something I hadn't realized I'd been missing. I started going to therapy to unpack everything I'd been through. The therapist helped me navigate my feelings, reminding me that I deserved honesty and respect in a relationship. Through our sessions, I came to realize that Emily's betrayal wasn't a reflection of my worth. It was a decision she made, and it was a painful lesson about what I needed from a partner. One night, as I sat on my couch, sipping a beer and watching a random show, it hit me, my life was mine again. I could choose what to do next without worrying about someone else's decisions or deceit. I began to focus on things I loved, things I had set aside while trying to save my marriage. I picked up biking again, rediscovering the freedom that came with the wind against my face. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages, laughing and sharing stories over drinks. Eventually, I felt ready to move forward. I filed for divorce. The process was daunting, and there were moments when I questioned if I was doing the right thing, but I knew I had to take this step for my own sanity. I couldn't allow myself to stay tied to someone who didn't value what we had. As the divorce finalized, I reflected on my experience, and I found clarity in the chaos. I learned that it's okay to prioritize myself, to demand respect in relationships. I understood that sometimes, the hardest decisions lead to the greatest growth. So, to anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, listen to your gut. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Communication is vital, but if your partner is unwilling to be honest or make an effort, it's worth considering if that's a relationship you want to stay in. You deserve love, loyalty, and respect, don't settle for less. As I stepped out into the world, ready for whatever came next, I carried with me the lessons learned from betrayal. It was painful, but it also made room for healing, for growth, and for new beginnings. And I knew, whatever lay ahead, I was finally ready to embrace it. With the divorce behind me, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. It was a strange mix of relief and fear, relief from the chaos of my marriage and fear of stepping into the unknown. But for the first time in years, I was excited about my future. I started focusing on self-improvement. I picked up hobbies I had neglected, like cooking and photography. I joined a local biking club, where I met some amazing people who shared my passion. There was a sense of camaraderie that reminded me of the friendships I had let slip during my marriage. I even signed up for a weekend cycling tour, which turned out to be one of the best experiences of my life. The adrenaline rush, the laughter, and the sense of freedom filled the void Emily had left. It was during one of those rides that I met Sarah, a fellow cyclist. She had an infectious laugh and a spirit that immediately drew me in. We started chatting during a break, bonding over our love for biking and travel. The chemistry was undeniable, and I found myself looking forward to our next rides together. It was refreshing to feel that spark again, but I was also cautious. After everything with Emily, I wanted to take things slow. As Sarah and I grew closer, I learned to navigate this new relationship with care. I opened up about my past, about the betrayal and the scars it left behind. To my relief, she listened without judgment and respected my pace. We went on casual dates, dinners at local restaurants, and long bike rides through the city. I was amazed at how easy it felt to be with someone who genuinely cared and was honest about her intentions. One evening, as we sat on a park bench, watching the sunset, I realized just how far I had come. The emotional turmoil that had once consumed me was fading, replaced by hope and excitement for what was to come. I was no longer defined by my past. Instead, I was becoming someone who embraced life and its possibilities. Sarah eventually asked me to go on a weekend trip with her, just the two of us. My heart raced at the thought. Was I ready to take that step? After some contemplation, I agreed. We planned a biking adventure in the mountains, and as the date approached, my excitement grew. When we finally hit the road, everything felt right. The stunning views, the fresh air, and the thrill of biking alongside someone who understood me brought a joy I hadn't felt in ages. We shared stories, laughter, and moments of silence, simply enjoying each other's company. That trip was a turning point for me. It was proof that love and connection were possible again, that I could be vulnerable without fear. I returned home from that weekend feeling rejuvenated, knowing I was on the right path. As I lay in bed that night, I reflected on how far I had come since Emily. I had faced my demons, embraced my passions, and opened my heart again. I learned that life is unpredictable, but it can also be beautifully rewarding when you choose to take risks and trust again. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready for whatever life had in store for me. Reflecting on everything that had transpired, I realized that my journey through betrayal and heartbreak had transformed me in ways I never expected. I had gone from a man shattered by infidelity to someone who could finally see the beauty in life again. While the pain of my marriage's end had felt insurmountable at times, it had also opened doors I never knew existed. First and foremost, I learned the importance of self-worth. For years, I let Emily's lies and manipulations erode my confidence and happiness. I came to understand that I deserved honesty, respect, and love. I had to fight for my own happiness instead of relying on someone else to provide it. This realization was liberating and allowed me to set new standards for my relationships. I also discovered the power of vulnerability. Opening up about my past with Sarah was daunting, but it brought us closer together. It taught me that true connections are built on authenticity. I learned that sharing my fears and scars didn't make me weak, it made me real. It created a safe space for us to grow together, free from the shadows of my past. In the aftermath of my divorce, I learned the value of community. I had isolated myself during my marriage, but reconnecting with friends and making new ones enriched my life immeasurably. The cycling club became a support system, reminding me that I wasn't alone in my struggles. We all carry our burdens, but sharing them can lighten the load and foster deep bonds. Through it all, I learned to embrace change. Life is unpredictable, and trying to control every outcome is a recipe for disappointment. Instead, I focused on adaptability and resilience. I realized that challenges often come disguised as opportunities. My experience taught me that while I can't control what happens to me, I can control how I respond. That lesson has become a guiding principle in my life. As I continued to build a relationship with Sarah, I took things one day at a time. We shared laughs, adventures, and honest conversations about our pasts and dreams for the future. The fear of betrayal lingered in the back of my mind, but I chose to approach our relationship with hope instead of skepticism. If I could share advice with anyone facing a similar situation, it would be this: take the time you need to heal. Don't rush into new relationships to fill a void. Embrace your emotions, reflect on your experiences, and learn from them. Surround yourself with supportive people, and don't shy away from vulnerability. Your journey may be painful, but it can lead you to profound personal growth. In the end, I learned that heartbreak can be a catalyst for incredible change. It pushed me to redefine who I am and what I want in life. I'm no longer just a man whose marriage ended. I'm a man who learned to love himself again and open his heart to new possibilities. Life may not always go as planned, but that's what makes it beautiful. Here's to the journey ahead, filled with new adventures, genuine connections, and a future bright with promise.